Hello, welcome to Her Voice Narrative. My name is Lillian, and today we are checking out some elders' revenge stories. Before the crack of this story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit the like button and subscribe if you know that patience and strategy are more powerful than rage. True strength is not always loud, and that the most powerful revenge comes from staying calm under pressure, planning carefully instead of reacting emotionally, being willing to sacrifice everything for the people you love, using truth and strategy as weapons, not violence or cruelty. Please listen to this story to the end. Now, let's crack on with today's story.
I walked into that building expecting to see my son standing tall. Instead, I found him on his knees on an expensive office floor, polishing another man's shoes while a room full of people laughed at him. My son. My blood. The boy I raised alone after his father walked out. The boy I worked double shifts for, skipped vacations for, sold my jewelry for, just so he could go to college and build something real. And there he was. On his knees. I did not scream. I did not cry. Not in that office. Not in front of those people. I turned around and I walked out. And then I made a phone call that would destroy the man who thought he could humiliate my child. This is not a story about rage. This is a story about what a mother does when everything she has ever sacrificed is mocked by a man who has never struggled a single day in his life. It started on a Tuesday morning. I woke up at 5 in the morning the way I always do. 38 years of working as a nurse will train your body to rise before the sun. Old habits do not die. They just become who you are. I stood at the stove in my small kitchen in a modest house in Northeast Houston that I had paid off 2 years early. The smell of coffee filled the air. Bacon sizzled in the pan. I had bought the thick-cut kind, the good kind, because today was a big day for Henry. Henry, my son, 29 years old. Smart as anyone I had ever met. He had just earned his MBA from the University of Houston with honors. Top of his class. Full scholarship. He had worked for it every single night, studying at that same kitchen table where I now stood making his favorite breakfast. 6 months earlier, Henry had married Priya Mehta. She was lovely, educated. Her family had money and connections. Her father, Raj Mehta, owned Mehta Group Hospitality, one of the largest hotel and resort companies in the Gulf Coast region. Luxury properties from Houston to New Orleans. And Raj had offered Henry a position. Management track. Real salary. Real future. A chance to grow inside a company that was already successful. On paper, it sounded like everything I had prayed for. So, why did my stomach feel so heavy that morning? I heard Henry come down the stairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing a dark navy suit that probably cost more than I used to make in 2 weeks. A gift from the Mehta family. His tie was silk. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. My son looked like he belonged in a boardroom. He did not belong on his knees. But I did not know that yet. "Morning, Mom." His voice had that nervous edge I recognized. The same edge he had on the first day of kindergarten. The same edge before his college interviews. "Morning, baby. Sit down and eat. You cannot walk into your first day at the Mehta Group on an empty stomach." He sat at the same chair he had sat in since he was 6 years old and picked at his food. He was too jittery to eat much. "Priya says her father is excited to have me on the team," he said. "Real opportunity to learn the business from the inside." "That is good," I said. I kept my voice calm. "I pour my coffee. But listen to me. Working for your father-in-law is not the same as working for a regular boss. You're going to have to work twice as hard to prove you earned your seat." "I know, Mom. I am ready." He said it with confidence. But I saw the flicker underneath. That small shadow of doubt that Henry had carried since he was a boy. The shadow that said he was always waiting for someone to tell him he did not belong. His father had put that shadow there when Henry was 7 years old and walked out without looking back. Some wounds heal wrong. "You earned this," I told him firmly. "Do not let anyone, family or not, tell you different." He nodded, finished some of his breakfast. When he stood to leave, I walked him to the door. "Thanks, Mom. For everything. for working yourself into the ground so I could go to school, for never giving up on me, for everything. I gripped his shoulder. That is what mothers do. Now go. Do not be late. He grinned. The nervousness disappeared for just a second. He was my boy again. Then he was out the door, walking to his Honda, the practical car he had insisted on buying himself even after marrying into money. That was Henry. That was his character. I stood on the porch and watched him back out of the driveway. The March air was cool. The neighbor's magnolia tree was just beginning to bloom. He waved as he pulled away. And then he was gone. I should have gone inside. I had a report to finish, bills to organize, the usual. But I could not move. I stood there with my hands in my pockets, staring at the empty street where his car had been. Something was not right. I had been a nurse for too long to ignore a feeling like that. When a patient looks fine on paper, but your gut says check again, you check again. You're almost never wrong. I was paying attention. I just did not know yet what I was paying attention to. By 11 that morning, I had read the same paragraph in my report 6 times without understanding a word of it. My coffee had gone cold. The weight in my chest had only grown heavier. I picked up my phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. He is 29 years old, I told myself. He does not need you hovering like he is a child. But I had spent 29 years learning my son. I knew the difference between him being fine and him needing me to show up. I grabbed my keys. The Meta Group headquarters was in downtown Houston. A 22-story tower of glass and polished steel that caught the midday sun and threw it back in your eyes. The kind of building that said money from every angle. The kind of place where women like me usually showed up through the service entrance. I parked in the visitor garage between a silver Range Rover and a black Mercedes. My old Camry looked like it had gotten lost. I walked into the lobby. Marble floors. Modern art on the walls that I did not understand. A young woman at the reception desk with a practiced smile. Good morning. How can I help you? I am here to see my son, Henry Foster. He started today. Something moved across her face. Pity. Maybe fear. Her eyes flicked toward the elevator bank and then back to me. Oh, let me check on that for you. She reached for her phone. But I was already moving toward the elevators. The ride to the 4th floor felt endless. Soft music played. The kind designed to keep you calm. It was not working. The doors opened onto the executive floor. Thick carpet. Framed awards on the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Houston skyline. I followed the signs past closed office doors. And then I heard it. Laughter. Male voices. That particular kind of laughter that only happens when someone is the joke they do not know they are in on. I rounded the corner. One door stood half open. The laughter came from inside. Something in my chest went cold. I walked to that door quietly, pushed it open, and stopped. Henry was on his knees in the middle of a massive corner office. Raj Mehta sat in a tall leather executive chair, one foot resting on my son's knee. Henry held a polishing cloth, his hands moving back and forth across the leather of Raj's shoe. Italian leather, the kind that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Did you miss a spot, or are you just slow? Raj's voice was dripping with something ugly. Something I had never heard directed at my child before. Contempt. 2 men stood near the desk. Expensive suits. Smug faces. One was older, silver at the temples. I would later learn his name was Gerald Okafor, Raj's lawyer. The other was younger. Corporate. His name was Sanjay Nair, Raj's business partner. Maybe he needs a few more weeks before he works his way up to wiping down the conference table, Gerald said. Sanjay laughed. Give him time. He is still learning which hand to hold the cloth in. More laughter. Henry's hands were shaking. His face was red. The same face that had lit up with pride at breakfast that morning. Now twisted with shame. Then he looked up and saw me in the doorway. Our eyes met. And I watched my son break. His eyes said everything his voice could not say. Mom, please. Please do not make this worse. Please just go. Every single muscle in my body wanted to move. To cross that office. To pull my son up off that floor. I am not a small woman, and I am not a quiet one when the people I love are being hurt. But Henry's eyes held me frozen. The fear underneath the shame. He was begging me not to act. He was afraid of what would come after. I forced my hands to unclench, forced my breathing to slow. "Can I help you?" Raj had not even bothered to move his foot from my son's knee when he looked at me, like I was a delivery person who had wandered into the wrong office. "I am Henry's mother," I said. My voice came out calmer than I felt, calmer than I had any right to be. Raj's expression shifted. Surprise. Then something uglier. Amusement. "Ah, Mrs. Foster. Your son is learning the business from the ground up." He gestured at Henry like you would gesture at a piece of furniture. Literally. Gerald and Sanjay laughed again. I looked at my son, at the cloth in his shaking hands, at the way he could not meet my eyes. "We will talk later, son," I said quietly. Then I looked at Raj, held his gaze long enough to make the smile on his face falter. "Just for a second. You and I will talk too, Mr. Mehta." Raj waved a dismissive hand. "I am a very busy man, Mrs. Foster." "You will make time," I said. Then I turned and walked out, down that hall with its thick carpet and its framed awards, into the elevator, through the marble lobby, out to the parking garage. I sat in my car with both hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I stared at nothing. The image would not leave my head. Henry on his knees, Raj's foot pressing down on my boy, that yellow cloth, the laughter. My son. I do not know how long I sat there. 5 minutes. Maybe 20. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I had not called in 3 years. "Diane," I said when she picked up. "It is Rose. I need your help. Something big." I drove home in silence. The city blurred past. Traffic lights. Storefronts. People living ordinary lives. I did not see any of it. Diane was my oldest friend. We had grown up in the same neighborhood in Beaumont, Texas. She had gone into finance, corporate consulting. She had spent 30 years learning how money moved, how companies stood, how they fell. She knew things about companies that the companies themselves tried to hide. "Give me 24 hours, she had said. 24 hours felt like a lifetime. Henry texted around 8 that evening. "Long first day. Staying at Priya's tonight. Talk tomorrow." I read the message 3 times looking for what he was not saying. I did not respond right away. I sat in my kitchen in the dark for a long time, looking at the photo of Henry on the mantel. 6 years old, missing his 2 front teeth, grinning like the world was made just for him. I made a promise to that photograph. I promised that little boy I would fix this. Diane called at 6 the next morning. "Meet me at the Blossom Diner on Westheimer. 7 a.m. She was already there when I arrived. Laptop open. Printed documents spread across the table like a battle map. She looked up when I walked in. "You look terrible, Rose." I did not sleep. She pushed a cup of coffee toward me. "Drink that first." I sat down. Took a sip. Burned my tongue. Did not care. Diane leaned back and folded her arms. "Raj Mehta is drowning." I set the cup down. "Say that again." "Mehta Group Hospitality is underwater. $16 million in debt. 3 major projects have collapsed in the last 18 months. A luxury resort in Galveston they started and never opened. A boutique hotel in New Orleans that closed 4 months after launch. A conference center development that bled money from the first day. And he has been living like nothing is wrong. The house is mortgaged to the roof. 2 of his 3 properties are leveraged. He has been shuffling creditors for months. The music is about to stop. How long before it collapses? 75 days. Maybe 80. When the banks move in, they will take everything. 120 employees lose their jobs. Raj loses the company, the houses, the cars, everything. I stared at the papers. Red numbers everywhere. "So Henry is there to make the company look stable," I said. "Like they are still growing, still bringing in talent." "Exactly." Diane slid a spreadsheet toward me. "Here is what you need to understand. The company is worth maybe 3 to 4 million if you sell it tomorrow for parts. But if you want controlling interest enough to actually run it and save it, you need a bigger number." "How much?" She tapped the paper. 9.8 million. That buys you 65% ownership and clears enough debt to keep the doors open and the employees paid. Anything less, and the whole thing collapses anyway. 9.8 million. I sat back and did the math in my head. 38 years of nursing. My retirement account. The equity in my house. The savings account I had been building since Henry was born. 3 rental properties I had bought during the 2008 crash when everyone else was selling. It was all there.
Barely.
But it was there.
Rose.
Diane's voice went quiet. Do not what? Whatever you are thinking. Do not do it. That is your entire retirement. Everything you have put away. I know what it is. If this fails, if Raj fights back or the banks will not cooperate, you lose everything. You would have nothing left. You are 61 years old, Rose. I know how old I am. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos. Scrolled to Henry's graduation picture. That crooked smile. That bright future he was supposed to have. I turned the screen toward Diane. How much is my son's dignity worth? I asked. Diane stared at the photo. Then at me. Then she rubbed her face with both hands and exhaled slowly. Everything you have got, apparently. I put the phone away and looked at the spreadsheet. Then let us get to work, I said. By 2 that afternoon, I was back at my kitchen table with 3 phone numbers written on a notepad. I dialed the first one. Sandra, it is Rose Foster. I need to sell my rental properties. All 3. Silence on her end. Then, Rose, those properties make you good money every month. Solid income.
I know what they make me.
How fast can you move them? Days if the buyers are ready. But are you sure? I am sure. Whatever the market will give us. I need it fast.
She did not ask why.
20 years in real estate had taught her when to just move. The second call was to my investment broker. Mr. Walsh, I need to liquidate my entire portfolio. Stocks, bonds, everything. I want cash in my account by Friday. His voice went careful. Mrs. Foster, you have been building this since the 90s. The market is up right now. If you wait just a few months, I am not waiting. Sell everything. A long pause. Then the sound of him typing. It will take a few days. I will have it done by end of week. The third call was the hardest. My retirement fund manager answered on the second ring. I had known Leonard for 15 years. He was a good man. Steady.
Honest. Rose.
What can I do for you? I need to withdraw my retirement fund. All of it. Complete silence. Then Rose. That is a significant decision. There are tax penalties. Early withdrawal fees. Are you sure about this? I am sure. I need it done by Thursday. He was quiet for a long moment. Okay. I will need you to come in and sign some paperwork. The funds can be available Thursday afternoon. Thank you, Leonard.
Rose.
Are you okay? I looked at Henry's photo on the mantel. I will be, I said. Every evening, Henry called. The calls were hard to hear. He tried to make his voice sound normal. Matter of fact. Like, what was happening was just part of the learning process. But I had been listening to that voice since the first sound it ever made, and I knew every shade of it. I knew when he was okay, and when he was barely holding together.
Day 2.
He picked up dry cleaning for Raj. A 45-minute drive each way. He laughed about it a little. Told me at least he got to listen to the radio. But I heard what was underneath the laugh. Confusion. A man with an MBA and honors trying to understand what kind of lesson this was supposed to be. Day 3. He was told to polish the main conference table and reorganize Raj's personal filing cabinet. Not digital files. Physical paper files, sorted by Raj's own private system that nobody had explained to Henry. He spent 4 hours on it. Got it wrong. Had to do it again. Day 4 was when I started writing things down. I have a notebook I keep on the kitchen counter. I use it for grocery lists, appointment reminders, the kinds of small notes you write when your memory needs help. That night I opened to a fresh page, and I started writing down every single thing Henry described. Every humiliation. Every task designed not to train him, but to break him. Because one day those notes would matter. One day they would be part of the truth that brought this whole thing down. Day 5. During a client lunch at Meta Group's private dining room, Raj had called Henry over and asked him to serve the drinks and clear the plates. Not as a lesson, not as training, as performance. One of the clients had looked at Henry and asked, "Are you from the catering service?" And Raj had laughed. Said, "My son-in-law is still finding his feet in the industry." Henry told me the story in the flattest voice I had ever heard from him, like he was reading from a document that had nothing to do with him. I wrote it all down. Day 6. A maintenance man named Victor Osei had found Henry alone in the break room after the client lunch. Sat down across from him without being asked. Did not say anything grand. Just kept him company while he ate. Treated him like a human being. Henry said it was the best thing that happened all week. That a man who cleaned floors showed him more dignity than anyone in management. I wrote Victor's name down in my notebook with a star next to it. People who showed my son kindness during his worst days were people worth remembering. Each call was a knife. Day 7. Henry was made to stand in the corner of Raj's office during a 2-hour strategy meeting.
Just stand there.
In case Raj needed something. He said 2 of the men in that meeting kept glancing at him. One looked almost sorry. The other looked amused. Neither one said a word. After I hung up, I sat alone in my kitchen with my hands flat on the table, and I let myself feel the full weight of what was happening to my child. I let myself feel it completely. The anger, the helplessness, the grief of watching someone you raised to be strong be systematically ground down. I felt it all. Then I stood up and went back to work. Because feeling it was allowed. Stopping was not. By Friday, the numbers were adding up. The rental properties were under contract. The investment portfolio liquidation was clearing. The retirement fund withdrawal was processing. Diane had set up a shell company, Gulf Coast Equity Partners, Anonymous LLC. My name did not appear anywhere. She had recruited 3 people to be the public faces. Michael Carter, a real estate developer I had helped out of a difficult situation years ago. He owed me. James Obie, a former hospital administrator who had become a corporate consultant, trustworthy and sharp. And Patricia Nguyen, a corporate governance specialist who Diane had worked with for 20 years. Clean reputation, boardroom language, commanding presence. They will walk in looking like a serious investment group, Diane said. Raj will not scrutinize too hard if the money is real. And the money was real. Every last cent of it. That was what made my chest tight every time I thought about it. On Friday night, Henry called, sounding hollower than I had ever heard him. "Mom, I do not know how much longer I can do this." I closed my eyes. What happened today? Raj had a colleague visiting from Dallas. He introduced me as the houseboy. He laughed when he said it. The other man laughed too. Henry. I kept my voice very steady. Just a little longer. I need you to hold on just a little longer. How much longer? I cannot tell you yet. But trust me. Can you do that for me? Just a little longer? He was quiet for a long time. Then, okay. Yeah. I trust you. I love you, son. Love you too, Mom. After the line went dead, I sat in the dark of my living room with the liquidation papers on the coffee table in front of me. Each piece of paper represented a piece of my life. 38 years of work. Every dollar I had scraped and saved and chosen over comfort for myself. I picked up the last document, the bridge loan agreement that put my house on the line, and I signed it. There was something Henry did not know during those 9 days. He did not know that every evening after his calls, I sat at that kitchen table for another hour or 2 going over numbers and documents and plans. He did not know that by day 4 I had signed papers giving up the 3 rental properties that had been my backup plan, my safety net, the thing I told myself I would sell if I ever truly needed money in my old age. He did not know that by day 5 his mother had called a retirement fund manager and said the words empty at all. He did not know that I had sat in Leonard's office on Thursday afternoon, signing document after document while Leonard kept pausing to ask me if I was completely sure. I told him yes each time, because the answer was yes each time. He did not know that late on Friday night, when the last transfer had cleared and the numbers in the Gulf Coast Equity Partners account read exactly $9.8 million, I had sat at this kitchen table completely alone and cried. Not from regret. Not from fear. Just from the weight of it. 38 years of early mornings and night shifts and saying no to myself so I could say yes to him. 38 years turned into a number on a screen that I had just moved to a business account to save my son's dignity. I wiped my face, poured a glass of water, and went to bed, because tomorrow there was more to do. On day 8, Henry called, and his voice had dropped to something I had never heard from him before. Not sadness, not anger, something quieter and more dangerous than both.
Mom.
I think I am disappearing. I gripped the phone. What do you mean? I look in the mirror, and I do not recognize the person looking back. I used to have ideas. Good ones. I used to believe I was capable of building something. Now I spend my days polishing shoes, and I am starting to wonder if Raj is right. If this is really all I am good for. Henry Foster. My voice came out harder and fiercer than I intended. You listen to me. The man who is putting you on your knees is a man who is drowning. He is not destroying you because you are worthless. He is destroying you because he is afraid. Because men like Raj cannot stand to see someone capable getting close enough to see the truth about them. A long silence. You really believe that? I believe it the same way I believe the sun comes up in the morning. I know it. Another silence. Then okay. I will hold on. But Mom,
Just tell me.
is there a reason? Is there something coming? Or are you just saying hold on to make me feel better? I closed my eyes. There is a reason. I promise you that. Just a little longer. Okay. He breathed out slowly. Okay. After he hung up, I wrote in my notebook. Day 8. Henry is starting to believe Raj. We are running out of time. I underlined it 3 times. And then I called Diane and told her we needed to move the meeting up. Sunday morning came with a knock at my door. I was not expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in a dark suit standing on my porch. Late 40s. The kind of groomed confidence that suggested he was used to authority. He was holding an official-looking folder. I opened the door. Can I help you? He pulled out a badge. Detective Raymond Holt, Houston Financial Crimes Division. Are you Rose Foster? My chest tightened, but I kept my face still. I am. May I come in? I stepped aside. He walked in and stood in my living room, his eyes moving around the room the way a man's eyes move when he is cataloging. What is this about? We have been monitoring some unusual financial activity connected to your accounts. Large asset sales. Multiple transfers. Patterns that triggered our automated review systems. I am making an investment. It is all legal. I am sure it is. He smiled. But we need to freeze certain accounts pending review. Standard procedure for transactions of this size. It should not take more than a few weeks. A few weeks. My entire timeline collapsed in that moment. I have a lawyer, I said. Of course you do. They will receive the paperwork Monday morning. He handed me a document. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Foster. We will be in touch. He turned to go. And that is when I saw it. The way his mouth curved as he reached the door. The cold satisfaction in his eyes. I had seen that exact expression before. On Raj Mehta's face, when my son was on his knees. Detective Holt got into an unmarked sedan and drove away. I stood there holding the freeze order.
Then I called Diane.
Raj knows, I said when she picked up. Someone leaked. He is using a cop to block me. Silence on her end. Then how is that possible? We were so careful. Find out who talked. It took Diane less than 24 hours to find the answer. His name was Thomas Webb. I had hired him 3 weeks earlier. A financial consultant who came with strong recommendations from a colleague I trusted. I had brought him in to analyze Mehta Group's financials in detail. Professional. Expensive. Discreet. Or so I had believed. I tested him on Monday morning. Called him with a fake timeline. Moving things up to Wednesday. Very specific. Very false. By Monday afternoon, Michael Carter called me. Raj Mehta is telling people an investor group is moving on him this Wednesday. Thought you should know. Wednesday. Exactly what I had told Thomas. He called me that night. Voice shaking. He wanted to meet. Needed to talk. We met at a coffee shop Tuesday morning. He looked awful. Unshaven. Dark circles. hands trembling around his cup.
He could not look at me. Thomas, I said.
Tell me what happened. He took a shaky breath. Raj found out I was working with you.
I do not know how.
Maybe someone saw us meeting. Maybe he had me followed. He called me in 3 weeks ago and told me his investigator had found something in my background. A lawsuit from a previous client. Settled out of court with an NDA. If he went public with it, my reputation would be destroyed. My career would be over. So you told him what I was planning. He squeezed his eyes shut. I told him everything. The offer amount. The shell company. The timeline. The strategy. I am so sorry, Rose. I am so sorry. I sat very still for a long moment. When did you tell him?
Saturday.
3 days ago. The day before the detective showed up at my door. I stood up. Do not contact me again, Thomas. Rose, please. I can feed him false information. I can help you fix this. I looked at him for a long moment. You have done enough. I walked out and sat in my car in the parking lot with my hands on the wheel. 10 minutes. Maybe 20. I was not angry. I was thinking. Raj knew everything. My offer amount. My timeline. My strategy. My shell company. Diane's words came back to me. How can you win this now? I looked down at my phone and noticed I had a missed call. Unknown number. Houston area code. Left at 6:30 in the morning. I had missed it while I was sitting across from Thomas. I pressed play. Mrs. Foster. A man's voice. Younger.
Calm.
Serious. My name is Nathan Cole. I know what you are trying to do. I know Raj Mehta is fighting you. I can help you end this. I have evidence that will destroy him completely. But I need your help to make it public.
Meet me tonight. Hermon Park.
The Rose Garden bench, near the main fountain. 6 p.m. Come alone. I will wait until 6:30. If justice matters to you, Mrs. Foster, I am your last chance. Diane said it was a trap.
Henry said he was coming with me.
I said no to both of them. I arrived at Hermon Park at 5:50. The evening light was soft and golden on the water. A man was already there, sitting on the bench near the rose garden. Mid-30s. Dark jacket. Neat but not expensive. He stood when I approached.
Thank you for coming, he said.
My name is Nathan Cole.
He paused.
Looked me directly in the eye. Raj Mehta is my father. We sat on that bench as the park quieted around us, and Nathan told me everything. 32 years ago, his mother, a woman named Clara Cole, had worked as an administrative assistant at the early version of Mehta Group. Raj was building his company. He was married to his first wife then. They had an affair. Clara got pregnant. Raj gave her $40,000, had her sign a non-disclosure agreement, and told her to disappear. He paid $1,500 a month for 30 years. Hush money. To keep Clara quiet. To keep Nathan quiet.
To keep the secret buried.
Nathan grew up knowing his father did not want him. His mother worked 3 jobs, even with the payments. When he asked about his father as a boy, his mother said, "He is not ready yet."
Someday.
Someday never came. How do I know you are telling the truth? I asked. He reached into a backpack and pulled out a folder. DNA test. Clara's birth records listing father as unknown. Bank records showing 30 years of payments from a shell company Raj controlled. The pattern was impossible to mistake. Why now? I asked. Why not go public years ago? I tried. The NDA my mother signed was legally binding. The media wanted Raj's confirmation before running anything. Police said it was a civil matter. Nathan closed the folder. Raj is rich and powerful. I am nobody. I learned a long time ago that you do not fight men like him head-on. You wait for the right moment.
He looked at me.
You are that moment, Mrs. Foster.
But there is something else, he said.
Something Raj does not know I have. His voice went very quiet. 8 years ago, my mother passed away. A car accident on I-10. The police said it was mechanical failure. Brake malfunction.
He stopped.
Swallowed. I never believed it. Because 3 days before she died, she called Raj. I heard her. She said she was tired of hiding, tired of the payments. She wanted me to know who my father was. Wanted to go public. I felt a chill move through me that had nothing to do with the evening air. Raj told her if she went public, she would regret it. 3 days later, her brakes failed. Nathan pulled out a second folder. Thicker. Older. I have spent 8 years investigating. I hired a private investigator named Carol Reyes. She found witnesses. She found the mechanic who worked on my mother's car. She traced a $15,000 bank transfer from one of Raj's shell companies to that mechanic 2 days before the accident. She found surveillance photos of Raj meeting someone in a parking garage 1 week before my mother died. He laid the documents on the bench between us. A sealed affidavit from the mechanic himself. He said a man matching Raj's description paid him to make sure the brakes would not hold.
He did not know anyone would die.
He thought it was insurance fraud. He is too afraid to testify publicly. But the statement exists. I read through the documents slowly. The timeline was chilling.
Perfect.
Why haven't you taken this to the police? I asked.
I did.
They said circumstantial. Without the mechanic testifying publicly, without a direct proven link to Raj giving the order, they will not prosecute. But if this became public, if a board of directors heard it during an acquisition, Raj's business partners would run. His banks would call every loan immediately. He would be finished. He looked at me. You have leverage. You have business associates. You have a reason to be in that boardroom. I have the evidence but no platform. Together we have both. I looked at Nathan Cole, at his sharp, serious eyes, at the grief underneath the calm that had never fully healed. I extended my hand.
Call me Rose, I said.
We shook hands. Let us finish this. I brought Nathan home that night. Henry and Diane were waiting in the living room. The tension was immediate. Diane stood when we walked in. Her investigator instincts were on high alert. How do we know this is not Raj sending someone to get inside information? Nathan set his backpack on the coffee table calmly. Because Raj does not know I exist. He erased me 32 years ago. He handed Diane the DNA test, the bank records, the full investigative file. Henry stepped forward. He looked at Nathan for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "He destroyed your confidence too, did not he? Your sense of who you are?" Nathan met his eyes. He erased my existence entirely. Like I was never real. Something passed between them. 2 men broken by the same person in different ways. "I am sorry," Henry said. "Nobody should live like that." Diane examined the documents for a long time. Finally, she looked up. "If this is real, and I want it verified, this is bigger than a business deal. You are accusing a man of arranging a death." "I know," I said. "But we cannot let him keep destroying people." The 4 of us sat at my kitchen table that night until past midnight building the plan. 5 moves at once, Diane said, writing on a legal pad. Move 1. I report Detective Holt to Texas State Rangers Internal Affairs. Bypass Houston PD entirely. Raj probably has connections there. Go straight to state level. His gambling debts are a matter of public record. The timing of my account freeze lines up too perfectly. That gets an investigation started. Move 2. Henry compiles a full dossier on Holt. Every public record, every debt, every court filing. A document so clear the state investigators cannot ignore it. Move 3. Michael, James, and Patricia walk into Meta Group headquarters with a formal buyout offer for 65% of the company at $9.8 million. Attached to the offer is a summary of Nathan's evidence. Not everything. Just enough for the board to understand what kind of man they are working for. Move 4. Nathan walks into that boardroom, reveals who he is, and presents the evidence directly to the board with his own voice and his own face. Move 5. We move tomorrow. No more waiting. No more delays. Every day we wait is another day for Raj to build a higher wall. Tomorrow, Henry said, checking his phone. It is almost midnight. That means today.
Today, I said. We end this today.
We slept for 2 hours. Maybe 3. By 6 in the morning, I was back in the kitchen making coffee for 4 people who looked like they had been to war and were about to go back. By 7, we split up. Diane drove to Austin, the state capital, to file the complaint against Detective Holt with Texas State Rangers Internal Affairs. Henry stayed home compiling the full Holt dossier from his laptop, cross-referencing every public debt record with a timeline of my account freeze. Nathan organized his evidence into clean professional folders, going over his statement until every word was exact. And I spent the morning on the phone. Michael Carter called at 8. Ready. James and Patricia are with me. My lawyer confirmed the buyout documents were clean and legal. The board had a fiduciary duty to consider a serious offer. If credible allegations of criminal conduct were attached, they were legally obligated to act. At noon, Michael called back. I delivered the offer and the evidence summary to all 6 board members. I just heard from the board chairman, David Osei. He said these allegations are serious. Emergency meeting approved. 2 this afternoon. I looked at the clock. 2 hours. At noon, we all met back at the house. Suits and ties. Nathan checked his folders one more time. Henry's jaw was set in a way I had not seen since he was 12 years old and told a bully to his face that he was done being afraid. I looked at my son standing in my kitchen looking like the man I always knew he would become. Ready? I asked.
He looked at me.
Together, Mom. We drove to Meta Group headquarters. My old Camry, Diane's sedan, and Michael's rental car. We parked in the visitor lot and stood together looking up at that 22-story tower of glass and steel. Last time I came here, Henry said quietly, I left through the loading dock with a box and my head down. I touched his arm. This time you walk in the front. We walked in together. The boardroom on the 4th floor was designed to make you feel small. Long mahogany table. High-backed leather chairs. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the Houston skyline. The kind of room where power was the only currency. The board was already seated. David Osei, chairman, mid-60s, silver-haired. Reading glasses perched low on his nose. Beside him was the CFO, Angela Park, sharp eyes, stacks of financial documents in front of her, a woman who looked like she had been carrying bad news for months and was tired of it. Independent director Franklin Okafor sat across from Angela, a 68-year-old retired attorney who had made his fortune in energy law. 3 other board members filled the table. Gerald Okafor and Sanjay Nair, the 2 men who had laughed while Henry shined shoes, sat near the middle. Both of them looked uncomfortable the moment they saw me walk in. And at the head of the table, Raj Mehta. Expensive charcoal suit.
Silk tie.
The full confidence of a man who believed he owned every room he entered. Michael, James, and Patricia entered first.
Polished.
Professional. David Osei stood and shook hands. Welcome. Thank you for coming on short notice. We understand Gulf Coast Equity Partners has a proposal. Thank you for the time, Michael said. We appreciate it. Raj glanced at them with mild amusement. He did not see the threat yet. Then Henry and I walked through the door. Raj's face changed in 3 stages.
Surprise.
Then anger. Then forced control. What is he doing here? He pointed at Henry like he was an inconvenience. David Osei adjusted his glasses. Mr. Foster and Mrs. Foster represent the investors behind Gulf Coast Equity Partners. This board is legally obligated to hear their proposal. Raj laughed. This is absurd. David, he is just my son-in-law. He was an employee who could not handle the job. I pulled out a chair and sat down.
Calm.
Unhurried. Henry sat beside me, back straight. Not the man who had been on his knees. Not even close. Michael stood and opened his portfolio. Gulf Coast Equity Partners is offering $9.8 million for 65% controlling ownership of Meta Group Hospitality. The terms are outlined in the documents before you. The board examined their copies. Angela Park studied the numbers like her life depended on getting them right. Franklin Okafor made careful notes on a yellow legal pad. Raj leaned back. We do not need outside investment. Meta Group is financially stable. This is a waste of the board's time. Angela Park set down the proposal and looked directly at Raj. Then she looked at the board. I think we need to be honest about our financial situation.
Angela.
Raj's voice went sharp.
She did not stop.
Meta Group currently carries $16 million in outstanding debt. 3 major projects have failed in the last 18 months. Payroll has been delayed twice this quarter. Our banking consortium has told us privately they are prepared to begin foreclosure proceedings within 80 days. Raj's face went red. Those are temporary cash flow issues. We have contracts in negotiation that will— What contracts? Franklin Okafor's voice was dry and flat. I am on this board, and I review every quarterly report. I have not seen a single new contract proposal in 7 months. David Osei held up his hand. The point, Raj, is that this board has a duty to our shareholders. We must give serious consideration to any substantial offer. Raj changed tactics. He looked around the table with the authority of a man who expected obedience. You want to talk about due diligence? Let us talk about who is really behind this offer.
He pointed at me.
Rose Foster is a nurse, a retired nurse, and her son is a failure who could not handle a basic entry-level position at this company. This $9.8 million is probably every cent she has ever saved. You want to hand over this company to them? I let him finish, waited for the silence after his words. Then I spoke for the first time since we had entered the room. You are right about one thing, I said. That is every cent I have ever saved. 38 years of night shifts. 38 years of choosing my son's future over my own comfort. And I put all of it on the line to stop a man who thinks humiliating people is a form of management. Michael stood before Raj could respond. There is one more matter this board needs to consider. It concerns conduct that directly affects the company's legal standing and public reputation. David Osei frowned. What matter? James gestured to the supplementary documents attached to the back of the proposal. I watched the board members flip to the attachments. Watched them begin to read the summary Nathan had prepared. The affair 32 years ago. The payments. The NDA. The timeline of Clara Cole's death. The investigation. Angela Park's face went pale. She set the document down, picked it up, kept reading. Franklin Okafor looked up.
Raj.
What is this Clara Cole situation? Raj's voice rose. That is slander. That is defamation. My lawyers will. Gerald Okafor, his own lawyer, leaned close and spoke urgently into his ear. Raj. Stop talking. The boardroom door opened. A man walked in. Mid-30s. Dark jacket. Calm, deliberate steps. He looked around the room, taking in every face. Then his eyes found Raj Mehta. And Raj went white. Nathan Cole walked to the table and set his folder down. My name is Nathan Cole. His voice was steady, even. He did not look away from Raj. Raj Mehta is my father. The room erupted. Gasps. Confusion. Chairs scraping. Every voice at once. I do not know who you are. Raj stood. This is a setup. A performance arranged by these people too. 32 years ago, Nathan said, his voice rising over the noise, you had an affair with my mother, Clara Cole. She worked for you. She became pregnant. You paid her $40,000 to disappear and sign a non-disclosure agreement. You then paid $1,500 a month for 30 years to keep her silent. He placed a folder on the table. DNA test. My birth certificate. Bank records showing 3 decades of payments from your shell company. Board members passed the documents between them. Franklin Okafor examined the DNA test. This looks legitimate. It is forged. Raj's voice cracked. He is lying.
This is blackmail.
Nathan's voice stayed even. I never met Mrs. Foster until 2 days ago. But we have something in common. We both loved people you tried to destroy. He opened the second folder. 8 years ago, my mother died in a car accident on I-10. Mechanical failure. Brake malfunction. The police called it an accident. He laid the timeline on the table. 3 days before she died, she called you. She told you she was done hiding. She wanted to go public. She wanted me to know who my father was. He placed the bank records next. 2 days later, you transferred $15,000 to a mechanic named Cooper from one of your shell companies. The day after that, my mother's car was serviced by that same mechanic. The next day, her brakes failed. He placed Carol's investigative report on the table. A private investigator named Carol Reyes has spent 8 years documenting this. This is a sealed affidavit from the mechanic himself. He says you paid him to make the brakes fail. He thought it was insurance fraud. He did not know my mother would die. The room was completely silent. Angela Park had both hands over her mouth. Franklin Okafor set the documents down slowly and stared at Raj. Raj. His voice was barely above a whisper. Did you do this? Lies, Raj said. But his voice had lost its authority. He sounded like a man who knew the walls were coming down. Gerald Okafor stood. His voice was hard. Raj, I have been your lawyer for 15 years. I am advising you right now to stop speaking and retain criminal defense counsel. That is all I will say. He sat back down and folded his hands. Sanjay Nair, the man who had laughed while Henry shined shoes, stood up. I resign from the board. Effective right now. He picked up his briefcase and walked to the door without looking back. David Osei looked at Raj for a long moment. Then at me. Then at the board. This board has a fiduciary and legal obligation to act. I am calling for a vote on the Gulf Coast Equity Partners acquisition offer. Raj slammed his hand on the table. This is my company. My father built this company from nothing. You cannot. I stood up. I kept my voice calm.
The board has a choice, I said.
Accept our offer. Restructure the debt. Save 120 jobs and give this company a future guided by integrity. Or wait for the banks to foreclose in 80 days and watch everyone lose everything. David looked at Raj. Do you have a counter offer? Raj looked around the table. At Angela. At Franklin. At the board members who had once answered to him. Not one of them would hold his gaze. He had nothing. David Osei said, all in favor of accepting Gulf Coast Equity Partners' offer and transferring 65% ownership. One by one the hands went up. Angela. Franklin. David himself. 3 others. Motion passes. David extended his hand to me. Mrs. Foster. Mehta Group Hospitality is yours. I shook his hand and looked at Raj Mehta standing at the head of a table that no longer belonged to him. There is one more thing, I said. My son, Henry Foster, will serve as chief operating officer of this company effective immediately. Raj opened his mouth.
Closed it.
Opened it again. Nothing came out. Henry stood beside me. He did not look at Raj with anger.
He did not need to.
He looked at the board, at the room, at the company that was now ours, with a quiet, steady certainty that told everyone in that room exactly who he was. 6 months passed. It was a Sunday morning in September. Early light coming through the kitchen windows. The smell of coffee. Bacon in the pan. The same breakfast I had made for 29 years. Henry came downstairs with his girlfriend, Jade, a teacher from Clear Lake who laughed easily and looked at my son like he hung the moon. She had kind eyes and no calculation in them. She was exactly who Henry needed. She asked about his day before she talked about hers. She noticed when he was tired without him having to say a word. She was gentle with him in the way that people are gentle with something they genuinely value. Henry had not looked for that kind of gentleness in a long time. He had stopped expecting it. Priya had filed for divorce 6 weeks after the board meeting. She moved back to Dallas. The prenuptial agreement held. She received a modest settlement and whatever she had left of a name that now carried the weight of everything her father had done. I did not feel sorry for Priya. I felt sorry for the version of Henry that had trusted her. But watching him now, laughing at something Jade said, reaching over to pour her coffee without being asked, I realized that version of Henry was gone. What was left was better. Harder in the right places. Softer in the right places. Mom, Jade says you make the best bacon in Houston. Jade laughed. I actually said in Texas. Let us be accurate. I smiled and set plates in front of them both. We sat at the table, the same table Henry had sat at since he was 6 years old, and the conversation was easy and warm and full of laughter. It was the sound I had fought for. This exact, ordinary, beautiful sound. I thought about Raj Mehta as I cleared the dishes. He had lost the company. His wife had filed for divorce the week after the board meeting. The criminal investigation into Clara Cole's death was now formally open. Nathan's evidence had given prosecutors enough to bring a case. Raj's attorneys were fighting every front simultaneously. His reputation in Houston's business community had collapsed overnight. Former partners who had smiled at his dinners and laughed at his jokes now declined to return his calls. Power built on cruelty is not as solid as it looks. It only stands because nobody challenges it. The moment someone does, it falls fast. Detective Holt had been suspended pending his own state investigation. Texas Rangers had uncovered a pattern of corruption that went back years. He was facing multiple charges. Thomas Webb had relocated to Dallas. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall, just a quiet sadness that he had chosen his own fear over integrity. I hoped he would find a way to rebuild. People who made wrong choices under pressure were not always bad people. Sometimes they were just frightened people who needed a second chance. Nathan came by the office twice a week now. We were building something together at Foster Hospitality Group, a community initiative focused on getting people from underserved neighborhoods into real careers in hospitality. Genuine pathways with mentorship and fair wages. Nathan had found something like peace. He had legally changed his name from Mehta to Cole, his mother's name. I want to honor her, he told me. Not him. She raised me. She worked 3 jobs. She protected me even when it cost her everything. She is the one who deserves to live on in my name. I understood that completely. Henry had transformed Mehta Group, now called Foster Hospitality Group, into something I was proud to have our name on. Fair wages, clear promotion paths, an open-door culture where anyone could raise a concern without fear. All 120 jobs saved. Most had seen raises within 3 months. Victor Osei, the maintenance man who had quietly sat with Henry in the break room during one of the worst mornings of those 9 days, was now director of facility operations. Henry had called him personally. Victor had laughed on the phone in disbelief.
Me?
A director? Henry had told him, "You are the only person in this building who treated me like a human being when it cost you nothing to look the other way. That is exactly the kind of person I want leading teams." After breakfast, Henry and Jade went for a walk along the bayou. I washed the dishes and stood at the kitchen window watching them go, their voices carrying back faintly in the warm September morning. Then I walked to the mantel and picked up Henry's graduation photo. That crooked smile. That future I had scraped and saved and bled for. "We did it, baby," I said to the quiet room. I thought about those 9 days. About every phone call where I listened to my son's voice get smaller and smaller while I built the thing that would save him behind the scenes. About the morning I stood in that office doorway and saw him on his knees and had to walk away without screaming because walking away was the only way to win. That was the hardest moment of my life. Not the paperwork. Not the empty bank accounts. Not the detective at my door. Not the traitor or the corrupt cop or the evidence that led to a death I had to hold the weight of without flinching. The hardest moment was turning away from my son when every cell in my body was screaming to run to him. But love is not always loud. Sometimes the deepest love is the love that knows when to wait. Some people might say I was foolish. That a 61-year-old woman starting over with almost nothing in the bank after spending 38 years building security was reckless. Irresponsible. They would be wrong about the nothing. I have my son back. The real Henry. Not the broken version Raj tried to shape him into. I have a company built on the belief that people deserve dignity at work. I have Sunday mornings that sound like this. Like laughter. Like home. I have Nathan, who found enough peace to smile again. I have 120 families who can pay their bills. And I have the knowledge that I looked a powerful, corrupt man in the eye and did not flinch. I did not use rage. I did not use cruelty. I used patience, strategy, truth, and the willingness to give everything. That is what justice looks like when you do it right. My phone buzzed. A text from Henry. He and Jade were stopping for flowers on the way back. Did I need anything from the store? I smiled and texted back. Just come home. He replied immediately. Already on the way. I set my phone down and looked around my small kitchen. Chipped countertops. Cabinets I had painted myself twice. The worn floor that had seen 29 years of Sunday mornings. None of it had changed. Everything was different. If you are out there watching this and you are in the middle of your own 9 days, your own season of watching someone you love be humiliated while you try to build something that will fix it, hear me when I say this. It does not always feel like it, but you are not powerless. Patience is a weapon.
Truth is a weapon.
Strategy is a weapon. And love, the kind that refuses to quit, the kind that signs papers at midnight and sells retirement funds and stands in boardrooms at 61 years old and says, "Not my son, not today," that kind of love is the most powerful weapon of all. Dignity is not taken from us. It is surrendered, and it can always be reclaimed. Do not surrender. Not ever.